Hello,
Hey,
everyone. Welcome to another weekly segment of our live streams with the Virtuous Skinhead.
Who's not
Unfortunately,
here? Not here. We've taken over. Not really.
right.
We'll explain why Kyle's not going to be in.
Yeah. So Kyle at the moment is in he's been involved in an altercation in Berkeley with a ongoing riot between Patriot Prayer Group and Antifa. So I'll be temporarily commandeering and taking over for the moment. Hopefully he'll join us sometime in the segment. For now, I'd like to introduce my good friend Mendel from UW-Madison.
right?
Care to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Uh, sure. You see a student here. Uh,
CS.
I guess like, what do you want
Computer
to
science.
know?
So people just clarify.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, what else do you want to know? Like, what's
Just
about me
what
that's
your
like,
political stances, I guess, or just like
I guess,
philosophically how you are politically.
okay, sure. I guess, um, I don't know. They're kind of like all over the place, but um, I guess utilitarianism is my guiding principle. I don't really adhere to any kind of like political doctrine other than that. I would say that that usually puts me on the left. Um, I'm like, certainly I'm like a liberal compared to your average mook.
Okay.
Um,
Your average leftist compared to the average leftist. You're more of a classical liberalist.
yeah, I don't like that term at all, and we can definitely like get into that and like
Yeah.
why it is.
It's more of a new thing, and I don't
Yeah,
really like.
I'm like definitely not a classical liberal though.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. A lot of people use it as of recent just because of how mangled up the current political left is. But I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, yeah,
I
I don't really see like the political left or right as the way I see it. Like, you shouldn't, I don't you shouldn't describe yourself using a political label um, just because like that club has gotten too crazy or something like that. These aren't clubs. These are just like shorthand for your stances, for your political stances. Yeah, and I get that there's like some associations that are created, but I don't really know. I guess we could talk about that.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you feel to disagree with, I mean, we all don't share the same views on everything, but if you feel like you need to chime in uh, about something you may disagree, then obviously we'll discuss that because we've had one person who we've debated on with certain issues. So it's good to get different perspectives on here because if it's a circle jerk, then that's kind of boring. Uh,
Yeah,
but anyways,
It's all right. We're kind of hacks, anyways.
yeah, we're not. There are so many more insightful people to listen to. Uh, I don't know. I guess the people watch like our personalities and just uh, not how silly we are, but I guess how our dynamics when we talk. I guess since we know each other. Um, but anyways, uh, to go into some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. Uh, Again,
Yes, I would like to start off by kicking off with the latest attack in Barcelona.
because for anyone who didn't watch the previous live stream, Ben talked about his recent European trip. So he was actually at the location that this attack took place. So obviously, um, you can go into why uh, this may have been
Yeah.
not predictable, but possibly just unexpected, I guess. I don't know. You've been there, you know what it's like. So take it away in terms of why this is a significant event as of recent in Europe.
Okay, so I happened to be in the biggest attack happened in this district street called La Ramblas. It was carried out by a van, which the driver zigzagged and ended up killing 13 people and injuring 100. So I've been to that particular district many times. I was there 3 weeks before the attack happened. So to give you an idea of what kind of demographics hang out in this area, it's a very popular tourist location. So you get people from all over the world visiting this district. I saw people from pretty much every corner of the world I could think of. I even have seen like some people that I've never seen before, even in diverse places like New York City. Like, for example, I actually saw two women there wearing niqabs. The first time I've ever seen that. So I think it's from that detail, it's clear that the attackers in this case were not trying to target anyone of any particular nationality. They pretty much are willing to kill anyone, obviously including other Muslims. So it's a pretty indiscriminate targeted attack. As for local law enforcement in the area is pretty heavily enforced. Frequently while I was there, I would see 3 police officers like walk in a line together, and then the one in the middle would be carrying like a submachine gun. And I saw several of these groups walking up and down the street. So they have a lot more law enforcement and security than in big cities here in the United States, at least from my observation. That's what it seems to me, because I don't see police in America doing that.
I don't know, just describe what it's like, because if I recall what you told me about when you visited, you said you were on like a bike tour, and that a lot of times when you were going through, the tour guide would say, in certain areas, not obviously you wouldn't, it'd be a no-go zone at least during nighttime, because just the crime level and how dangerous it is in that particular area of the city. Just describe what it's like with that sort of, how the racial demographic, well, not racial demographic, but just the ethnic demographic between the Muslim population, which is almost 40% alone in Spain. Barcelona in particular is pretty high. So it's almost to the point where
actually, Parker, you're describing Marseille, France.
Am I?
Yeah. That's where the bike tour was, and that's the one with the 40% population. What I can say for Spain, though, is Spain, the percentages are not as high. In fact, in Spain, they make it much more difficult to get settled there if you're not a citizen of the EU. In fact, there's a law in place that you have to live in the country for 3 years before you can get a job permit if you're from outside the EU. So they have a bit more strict immigration policy compared to other countries in the EU like France and Germany.
Okay, you're right. I fucked up. I mixed France and Spain demographics. But still,
Yeah.
at least in Barcelona, at least, I'm looking at Pew statistics here, and it looks like, in terms of the overall Spanish population, it's about 4%, and about 58% are immigrants or migrants. With Barcelona having, looks like it's about 13% of the city. So did you notice anything like at least similar to Marseille in terms of the overall uh, environment, in terms of like expecting something like this to happen, or was it completely unexpected?
Well, I was actually not really particularly expecting it because it's not like a overwhelmingly it's not like Marseille where it's an overwhelmingly migrant based population. It's 1 second. So it's actually mostly a tourist city. Probably about half people in the entire city are tourists. The particular district I was in, as I was saying before, is like a very diverse area. So you get people from pretty much everywhere. The attackers, I was looking up online, were from Morocco. In fact, I actually found out just recently that they were originally planning a bigger attack in the church cathedral, but they originally had explosives prepared for that, but they accidentally detonated them in one of the houses, so they had to carry out a more rudimentary attack with a van. So the planned attack was actually a lot bigger than what happened. So to give an idea, basically a general point we should get from this is that we've talked about before how like mass migration is a big issue, but but this should indicate that it's not really that simple. Even with a stricter policy, you're still not immune to the problems of terrorism or Islamism or Islamic extremism. So Europe is in a pretty tough situation. It's not really clear at this point if there's a clear-cut solution to. I can say with certainty that it's not an issue with lack of security because, like I said, Barcelona has a lot of security. So I think it's a very difficult issue.
I've joked around that Europe is doomed and that it's hopeless, but that's mostly referencing Sweden just because of all the bullshit policies that they've implemented in their government, which has screwed a lot of the people over. It's not just in Sweden; it's in a lot of other places. Calais, in Marseille, France. Just a couple of examples, but overall, a lot of it has to go with the open border policies. But yes, a lot of it is due to other issues, just not in terms of recent influx of migrants, but just overall over decades of just people integrating or not integrating with the culture, in terms of just the overall influence Islam has, especially in France, because in France, Islam is slowly turning into a it's going up into possibly the 50 percentile, and could be a majority fairly soon. Just again, looking at some stats.
Well, France currently has the highest Muslim population in Europe.
Yeah, just I'm looking at a couple of statistics here. Just total Muslim percentage, at least in cities across Europe, and we're talking about European Union members. A lot of them, at least in terms of like the ones that are more particularly EU oriented, we're looking at Germany, Belgium, stuff like that. Antwerp and Brussels, their Muslim population is over 15%. Which just to give a perspective, a lot of these places have smaller populations to begin with. So just imagine just having a broader influx of foreign people just entering a country which is culturally, stayed the same for a pretty significant period of time. It changes, the cultural dynamic when that happens. Not to say, it's a terrible thing, but when a lot of these people don't assimilate or integrate and try to not necessarily swallow up the other, the native culture, but, don't care for it or just, don't wish to actually become citizens, that's the issue. Which, a lot of the EU, loyalists don't like to admit, whether that's just through the intention of, gaining votes. It's kind of a weird conspiracy theory, but, it's sort of like the similar argument to why politicians in the U.S. still allow illegal immigration from Mexico into the United States just to get a broader voting base. It could be for that reason. It could be for economic reasons, but still, it's just kind of dumbfounded why a lot of this stuff has happened as of recent. And it's not to say that, like Ben said, that an attack on Barcelona would not have happened if this stuff wasn't implemented, but a lot of the stuff could be, significantly decreased, or, would actually be stopped, in terms of, not, government involvement stop it, but just the actual like Muslim community stopping these attacks before they happen. Not saying that a lot of the Muslim community in Europe is, ISIS affiliated or wants to help ISIS, because that's completely not true. Most of ISIS's victims are Muslims, but we have seen before, such as the attack on Brussels a year ago, where the attackers were actually hidden after the attack by people sympathizing with them, which made it hard for police to track them down. So, yeah, just overall, it's sort of the same attitude that this attack has had in Barcelona, just of not anti-Muslim sentiments, but more skepticism about Islam and Muslim culture in general, or at least the mainstream Muslim culture. So yeah, my thoughts haven't particularly changed, but it's just it's more terrifying to realize that a lot of these are, attacks are happening not through means, that like 9/11 happened, which was of course barbaric, but it was barbaric in the sense that, it destroyed, like a particular infrastructure of a city. These attacks, in Europe are just like completely barbaric in the sense that it's happening through ordinary means, running over people with vans, which, recently happened in Charlottesville. We'll talk about that later. But, a lot of
these
these
are trying to like maximize the number of deaths too, because
yeah.
like in La Ramblas, the place where this van attack happened, it's a very densely packed area. Like when I walk through it, like I can't move around very fast because people are like very clustered together. And also it's hard for people to run away because the way the street is set up is there's sort of like a boulevard in the middle where they have shops set up and individual spots where you can switch lanes. And he was zigzagging between using these spots. So it was some people like dived out of the way in cafes and stuff, but it's very difficult. If I were there, it would have been very difficult for me to avoid it. I can say with certainty. So Mendel, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on how we can have a productive conversation on these issues, like while avoiding accusations of xenophobia, like to have the conversation in a more sensitive way?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't have a good answer for you. I mean, I don't think anyone really does, or maybe wouldn't be having this issue.
Like a realistic answer beyond just, everybody should just understand each other and get along, because obviously neither, I'm not going to say neither side, but, just people don't really want to do that. They'd rather view that they're completely right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like most of the kind of criticism directed towards Islam or immigration, comes from right wingers, and there's definitely a I guess like cause for generalization there. I'm not saying that it's like a justified generalization, but that is a thing, and I don't have any answers on how to push back on that very effectively.
Which reminds me, actually, in the wake of the recent attack in the recent events in Charlottesville, Virginia, several companies have pledged their support for the Southern Poverty Law Center. Interestingly, of course, for those of you who don't know, Southern Poverty Law Center put Muslim reformers like Majid Nawaz and Ayaan Hirsi Ali on their top 10 anti-Muslim extremists list.
Extremists. People who want to have philosophical discussions about why, not just why the religion has issues like every religion does, but just like actually scrutinizing it. So the actual free world and, actual Muslims who want to, they want to take the bad part of the religion out, just basing these people as just bigots for calling out shit like that. It's ridiculous. And it's they're an interest group. They're a leftist interest group, pure and simple. I mean, it's a cop out for a lot of people to say that different organizations are leftist groups, especially like if you call ACLU a leftist interest group just based on the fact that they've defended certain, leftist actions in the past. But Southern Poverty Law Center for sure is definitely left leaning for sure. They don't really hide their bias in regards to that. Some people might mention that like, oh, they put the Black Panthers as a hate group. They have, them listed as a hate group. But just because they do that does not completely misjudge the fact that they have fucking ridiculous decisions that they've made, like Ben mentioned. Majid Nawaz and Ayaan Hirsi Ali are just the most completely non-dangerous people to even worry about. I've never heard either of them talk any bit of violence towards Muslims or just anyone. So it's just.
Well, there was one statement that Ayaan Hirsi Ali said that was taken out of context and used against her. Like one time when she said that we are at war with Islam or something like that. And a lot of people interpret that as, oh, you support U.S., you want the United States to invade every single Muslim majority country and kill Muslims. And I was like thinking in my head, no, you idiots. She's not talking about a physical war. She's talking about an ideological war.
Yes. This is all about ideas. They just want to change ideas. They don't want to change the way people want to practice their faith, because obviously that's totalitarian in itself. They just want to change that the religion doesn't want, so they want to change so the religion doesn't fuck with other people's lives. You know, the basis of freedom of religion, or at least the way our Constitution defines it, is that you can practice your faith any way you want, so long as it doesn't, you know, infringe on other people's rights. And that's the way it should be. And, you know, unfortunately, political Islam doesn't do that. Mainstream Islam doesn't do that. So, you know, we have to have these discussions about how to change these things. And you can't do that when different people are saying, oh, you're talking about the people, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, a lot of the people in the Muslim world would appreciate changing these things as well. Because, you know, like we've said, they're the victims of this fucking shit. They have to deal with, you know, honor killings and female genital mutilation and persecution against gays and secularists and, you know, atheists. They have to deal with this shit. Just to name a few. There's plenty more which we can mention, but yeah, what were we talking about? The Southern Poverty Law Center and how they're...
Oh, yeah. I was bringing this up because Ayaan Hirsi Ali wrote a scathing piece in the New York Times discouraging the CEOs, telling them, no, she was basically saying in the piece, yes, I agree, these white nationalists are terrible, and Trump's response to it was terrible, but you shouldn't be throwing your support at the Southern Poverty Law Center. These people prevent people like me from speaking out about other forms of oppression and bigotry, and you'd be best off donating your money elsewhere. So I bring this up partly because I wanted Mendel to offer his thoughts on, like, just to, before I address the issue too, I want to clarify that I try to be careful not to paint the entire left with a broad brush, because I know there are many leftists who support Ayaan Hirsi Ali. Like Bill Maher, for example, has openly endorsed her.
Maher. Why do you say Maher? It's Maher.
Oh, okay, Bill Maher. And a lot of people question whether Dave Rubin is still a leftist or not. Dave Rubin supports her. Richard
I have
Dawkins,
a lot of thoughts on that.
All the new atheists support her, like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris. So I was wondering if you could give your thoughts as to what you think about the left's treatment of Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for the entire left, but you know,
Okay,
there's definitely a you know, a grain of truth in saying that, you know, the way she's been dealt with is just very unreasonable and certainly doesn't make sense from a liberal perspective. I mean, these are really it's fun because like these are just conversations I had like ad nauseum, and I feel like I'm you know, broken record repeating them for, you know, the 100th time or so. In fact, I sort of like stopped doing that just because, like, you know, every time there's a new terrorist attack, every time there's the same reaction from, you know, every party that has something to say about this, whether it's pretty stupid or not. I mean, what else is there to have in terms of these conversations? I don't know.
I mean,
but
like,
yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that like I'm fairly in agreement with you too about, I guess the way I guess some of the left has just like
I'm wondering
the entire like you know, the entire phenomenon of Islamism and its critics.
Like a divide or schism, like a divide within the left, like some people in the left kind of supporting Ayaan Hirsi Ali, whereas like my thought is that there's a weird bit of divide where you have the ones who are trying to more consistently support liberal principles and thus stand with Ion Hercule. And then there are the others who like try to like they're more interested in like intersectionality. So they support like Linda Sarsour and types like that. So I was wondering if you agree with my analysis and if you have like any thoughts about this divide or whatever.
Or like, you know, are you talking about like your analysis as in there being a schism on the left?
Yeah, a schism within the left.
Like, honestly, I don't feel incredibly qualified to say anything about that, just because like I'm not in tune with kind of the with the political and well, I'm not in tune with like the thoughts of your average leftist. I don't know. Just based on my experience, and you know, my experience is obviously very limited. It's there's very scant support coming from liberals on this issue, and a lot of it seems to come from either or here's the thing. I don't know where to actually put people anymore. Well, I don't know. It's hard to put people into these, like, I guess, political labels, just because, like, I think there's been a mass sort of like migration away from the left, not in terms of like the actual value, but in terms of how people are finding themselves. At least, like, that's what I've seen just through sort of the media outlets that I've been exposed to. Yeah, I don't. I can get more into that.
But I mean, like, do you know anything? Like, how much do you know about the Women's March?
Not as much as I wish I did. I mean, like, I'm not a fan of Sarsour. I consider her, to be kind of like a, regardless of what her own, like, personal views are, sort of like the net influence she has on politics is to sort of excuse some of the pretty right-wing elements of Islam. Like, I'm definitely not in favor of that.
Like, any tweets in particular? Like, have you seen any tweets?
I'm not even on Twitter, honestly.
Okay. I'll just give a quick rundown.
Twitter is a cesspool, and it's it's not just politics that makes it a cesspool, but just the only reason to go on Twitter is to get lulls and see drama. It's pretty much what it's for. Linda Sarsour's Twitter in particular is fucking vile and revolting. Every time I go through it, it's like, oh, here's another hateful thing to say. Here's another stupid thing to say. Here's another thing which you're basically using as propaganda to shove onto people. And it's stupid how a lot of these people just eat it up like candy, especially people who are just ignorant of the fact that she has these just really just fucked up views on how the world should run, considering that she's quote unquote a progressive, even though she supports stuff which is far from progressive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're regarding the whole issue of I guess Islamism and some of its just like negative cultural influence. I suspect we're probably going to be in agreement on most topics. Like, is there something like we could not circle jerk about?
Maybe we could get to the statues. Since we started talking about Charlotte.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
A little bit
I'm interested in actually hearing your thoughts.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know, the whole reason the crazy events at Charlottesville got started and set in motion with the white nationalists coming in and carrying torches and demonstrating and chanting hateful slogans like "You will not replace us." This was in response to a decision by the city council to remove a monument of Robert E. Lee on the campus. So they came to the location of the monument to protest there. So I personally actually have mixed views myself about these monuments being up. I think it's important to have like these monuments kept someplace so that, you know, to show your history, to show your heritage, but at the same time, you want to make sure you're not like glorifying certain aspects of history, like slavery played a major role in the Civil War, of course, and Robert E. Lee was fighting for the Confederacy, which was fighting to defend and keep slavery. That was the principal reason why they rebelled against the Union. But on a slightly on a related note, a lesser known event that's happened recently is here in Madison, Wisconsin. Our mayor, Paul Soglin,
mayor Paul Soglin, who, by the way, if no one knows this, Bendel, if you don't know this, this is just fucking gold. This was like a revelatory shock when I heard about this, but apparently Paul Soglin gave the freaking key of the city of Madison to who else but Fidel Castro himself.
Really? When was this?
The 1970s.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite shocking. So yeah, he doesn't hide the fact that, you know, I wouldn't call him a communist per se, but he's definitely not a hardcore leftist per se, but just he has very significant leftist leanings. So it's not surprising that he would. Okay, well, just what Ben was going to say. Our college football stadium in downtown Madison, where the Wisconsin Badgers football team plays, where, you know, UW-Madison graduations take place, where other events happen. You know, it's a giant stadium. You know, you could fit, you know, over 50,000 people in. It used to be a prisoners of war camp during the Civil War. They kept thousands of Confederate soldiers there, and, you know, hundreds of them died there because obviously back in the Civil War, health conditions were terrible. The majority of people that fought in the Civil War died from infection or disease. So, you know, most of these people died in custody for those reasons, but they died there. And, you know, Camp Randall itself is, you know, a historic, I won't call it a monument per se, but it's a historic site. And basically, just to show proof that it was, you know, a prison camp during the Civil War, there is a plaque, you know, on the grounds that says, you know, just a basic summary that, hey, this was a Union prisoner of war camp. There were Confederate soldiers that were prisoners of war that were imprisoned here for a period of time, and that there was a significant percentage that died there. And basically the controversy of the plaque is that it says these men were heroes and they died here. And that's basically the controversy behind it. And because of the recent events that happened in Charlottesville, and because of the recent violations of public property, of defacing or destroying Confederate statues across the United States, our mayor has decided to take this piece from a historic site down with executive order, not going through legislation, any type of voting process at all, just taking it down. So, I mean, we could go about if this is a complete whitewashing of history, but just kind of a unprecedented sort of decision. knee-jerk reaction because of what happened in Charlottesville.
All right. Yeah, I think we might actually have a point of disagreement here. Well, so just to clarify the language on that plaque, it said that these Confederate soldiers were heroes, right? Is that like,
yeah? I could bring up what the actual plaque says quick, just to
that might be useful to have. But I think there's a broader point here that I think it's any kind of thing that not necessarily glorifies, but tries to paint the Confederacy in a positive light I think it's like a good thing to do away with. So I really don't see what's wrong with this. Can you like maybe explain your position?
Yeah, because I feel the same way in that I don't think it's I feel like people could do what they want in terms of if they want to have a Confederate flag or whatever. I don't feel like Confederate stuff necessarily should be on government property. I don't feel like a Confederate flag or statue necessarily needs to be in front of a government building or office. If the principality, if the state feels like they want to, then yeah, I feel like it's a right. I don't think the federal government should say, hey, take this down. I don't think any executive authority should take it down because, at the end of the day, it's a piece of history. And if, the local government, the actual representatives or the community wants to keep it, then they should keep it. But I don't have the basic perception of the Confederacy like a lot of people will do, in that they were complete traitors to this nation, and the majority of them just fought because they wanted to keep slavery. Yes, the Confederacy did want to keep slavery. They wanted to defect from the United States, but it's sort of a story that's not being told of a splintering from a government that was, for the most part, totalitarian in regards to at least being sort of regulating the South more and sort of taking rights away from the South.
Wait. I have to sort of stop you there. Like, what do you mean by that exactly? I mean, I don't really. I mean, if you mean like regulating the South more, you mean like putting pressure on the states to do away with slavery. I like that's absolutely a justified use of government authority.
Yeah, that's one of them, but slavery was part of the economy there. But there's
what does it matter?
Besides that, besides actual businesses within the U.S. taking land away from states that eventually defected. I mean, we could go into the history about how the war actually started, about because it's contested about who attacked who first, about whether it is after the Confederacy defected and then the Union of the United States attacked before that. But I feel about this with the majority of wars. I don't feel like any particular side is completely evil. I think that there's, a lot of leaders and, just some of the people that are in charge, that are, forcing people to fight their own battles. And that's why, we have situations like in Nazi Germany where, obviously Nazis are reviled today, as they should be. But just to give a perspective, people who were fighting in the German army during World War II weren't all Nazis. There were some people who were forced into service, forced to wear SS uniform or swastika, people who were, like in the, it wasn't called the Czech Republic then, but, Czechs were forced to fight in the German army against their will. So you can't just paint a broad brush of everybody who fought, because, at the end of the day, the Confederacy completely lost. It wasn't necessarily because, they were worse in terms of the morality. It's worse because, they were just unequipped to fight the Union. Their economies were crippled. They weren't stocked as much to fight a long-term war because all the factories, all the manufacturing was in the North. The Union could far outlast the Confederacy if it came to it. Like I said, the majority of people who fought in the Civil War died from disease and infection. The Confederacy particularly higher because their rations and supplies were just completely inadequate compared to the Union. A lot of people who fought in the Confederacy didn't even have fucking boots to wear when they actually fought. So my just general attitude is I'm pissed off about this plaque getting taken down because, first of all, it's an executive authority by a guy who shouldn't have executive authority over things. I think a lot, if you're going to take something from a historic site, because also Camp Randall is a cemetery as well, because, these prisoners of war were buried there as well. I think this has to go through the city of Madison, or at least the county, Dane County, if it should be taken down. And, if the voters or representatives or senators want to take it down, then so be it. That's how legislation works. That's how it should be. God, I'm ready to hold breath here. But yeah, it's just my general thoughts on it. I don't feel like God damn. I don't feel like it should be just God. I'm going to die in a few seconds. Oh, let me get
All right. I'll try and just add and piggyback a little bit onto that. So yeah, you are correct. I think only about, I remember hearing that about 10% of Germans were Nazis. So yeah, that's the general gist, I feel. Mendel, you said earlier that we shouldn't celebrate the Confederacy as heroic, but I don't think that's really what the plaque was trying to do. My understanding was it was to show respect to those individual soldiers, because
I mean, here's my thoughts on that. I don't actually know the values that these soldiers were fighting for, and honestly, I don't think that's actually a relevant part of this conversation. Nor is I think it's very plausible to say that many of the Confederate soldiers were just ordinary farmers forced by these rich slaving owning assholes to fight their war for them. That seems possible. That's not really that historical context is not really what's the center of the debate here. The center of the debate here is what is the kind of influence that this memorialization has on our society, and what does this represent, and just things of that nature, things that are relevant to today. So, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, Robert E. Lee opposed slavery." I don't know if that's true or not, and honestly, I don't even think it matters. But we'll return to the statue of Robert E. Lee. So some people will say, "Oh, we shouldn't take this down because," and it doesn't glorify slavery or white supremacy or the Confederacy because Robert E. Lee was not a white supremacist, or he wasn't a fan of slavery. To me, not important. What's important to me is that people looked up to that as a symbol of white supremacy, both white supremacists themselves and black people, of course. And that is sort of the sort of the crux of the reasoning behind why these things should be taken out. And I think sort of a similar reasoning can be applied to like, I guess, this instance, this planet closer to home. I mean, these people who died in this prisoner of war camp could have been just like perfectly fine people who didn't have a racist bone in the body. Unlikely given like the social context, but like let's suppose that's the case. Even then, like, it doesn't matter. What matters is how do people see this, and like what kind of like message do we want to I guess send by having this as a monument. So that's my thoughts on these statues. I think we should take them all down. I mean, like, we could just draw like an analogy to to the Nazis, as we were just discussing. I mean, like, if you lived in Germany, I mean, Parker, you said something about, if like if some jurisdiction wants to have a Confederate flag flying on the ground, like that's like not I'm not saying that you'd be keen on that, but you'd say that should be allowed. Well, I mean, what if some place in Germany wanted to fly like a swastika? I mean, that would, like, basically I don't see any. I mean, certainly there's a difference in scale, but qualitatively, in terms of the ethics, I don't see a difference between the Confederate flag and the swastika, and I don't see a difference. At least I see a difference in terms of the scale, but like, I don't see a difference in terms of, well, I mean, scale is debatable, but I don't see a difference that shifts sort of the ethical calculus one way or the other between Nazi Germany and the Confederacy. That they both fought for something like incredibly evil, in my mind. And it's like good that we're doing away with anything that would prop up any aspect of that as positive. I mean, like, I'm not saying to destroy these monuments, but we should have, okay, I mean, like, it'd be fine if these statues were in a museum, and in a museum in the context of like what these people were defending. I mean, if you had a statue of Robert E. Lee, in his uniform and whatnot, and it was in the same museum as like that put on display just like the horrible legacy of slavery in America, that would be an appropriate way to have to remember our history. But that's like not really what's happening when you put up a giant statue on government grounds and whatnot. So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't think I explained clearly about private ownership distinctions. Like, a private owner, like someone that owns their own land or own property, if they want to have a Nazi flag or Confederate flag, so be it. That's completely justifiable. It's your private right to do that. Public property, government property is a little more sketchy, like I explained. Government buildings, I don't particularly want, at least in the U.S., Confederate stuff around. Public property, if it's a public historic site, which is what we're talking about with Camp Randall, I don't see why it's wrong to at least have that presence of actual historical background as to why it should be there. I mean, like, even in our Veterans Museum, we make a there's exhibits to explain why there's Confederate artifacts in this museum. And the reason why I think at least the precedent of taking all these statues down right away is just a knee-jerk reaction to just destroy the presence of anything that is considered white supremacist, just because everybody and their freaking mother has this paranoia that white supremacy is taking over the U.S., which is just fucking ridiculous. And my problem is that if you go down and take these statues down just indiscriminately without going through what I would consider the proper channels, like, you know, if it's on a historic site or if it's part of a particular state's background, then, you know, what else will be taken down? What other piece of, you know, historic significance are you going to take down as a means you think is justifiable? You know, I won't say that's, you know, compared to ISIS destroying, you know, particular like Mesopotamian artifacts in the Middle East, but it's just like, you know, we got to make a distinction as to why we should take them down for so-and-so reasons instead of just saying, oh, we need to take them all down because it's because of this way.
All right, sorry to cut you off, Parker, but
yeah,
Kyle is finally joining us.
Yeah.
Hey.
So this has been a shit show. All right. I will have a quick message. Okay. I'll stay on, but I do have a very quick and blunt message. To anybody, the very few who are watching this, the people who are joining us today, Parker, Ben, of course, and then your friend. I apologize that I don't really know your name. Mendel, there we go. I was about to call you Malau for some reason, then I figured that would be racist. But so this has been an absolute shit show today. When I state that, I mean it to a very clear extent. That one, and down in Berkeley. Okay, this is a very clear and decisive victory for them. And the reason I state that, they've been able to run police out of areas. They have beaten. If you, I've spoken of him before. They have beaten Joey Gibson. He has been hospitalized. Tiny, the very large Samoan, who is probably about 3 to 4 inches taller than I am and probably about 100 pounds more, he was beaten and hospitalized. Multiple others have been hospitalized. Cops have not been able. They were ordered to stand down. When they did try to intercept or try to intervene, they were very, very clearly run out. There was no way to actually have any kind of law and order in this area.
Okay, Kyle, you might want to give a little context to what particularly happened today, just for people who don't know. Because, like, I didn't even know until I just showed up home, and then all of a sudden I'm getting these news reports about another battle of Berkeley. It's like every other fucking week it's a battle of Berkeley.
So, as a basis, there was prayer rally headed by Joey Gibson. Now, Patriot Prayer is it's a very simple group that is about the freedom of speech and the freedom to practice it as you see fit. It's actually headed by an Asian guy, so very, very far away from the idea of white supremacy. On the other hand, Nancy Pelosi and multiple other news outlets flat out called them an alt-right neo-Nazi group who's coming in for a rally in San Francisco, which got everybody fucking riled up. All the counter-protesters in light of Charlottesville came out of the woodworks. A lot of people, now there's, I believe they counted over 1,000 different anti-fascist or Antifa people who came out into the streets and have now stolen property, beaten people, hospitalized them. It got bad today. It got really, really bad today, and this is not a joke anymore. I genuinely fear that this is going to be the turning point, that if you think Charlottesville was bad, for anybody who believes anything in regard to the freedom of speech or being able to practice it as they see fit, if they think Charlottesville was bad, today was worse. This was a clear and very vivid, decisive victory for Antifa, and it's unacceptable. There are the people that I've talked to who are on the alt-right, the people that I know who are on the alt-right, they're calling for blood. Like, this is not a joke. They're calling for blood. The people who have talked to who are members of Antifa, they're calling for blood as well. And they're like, good, we're glad that they were beaten and hospitalized. We want blood. And both sides are dying for blood.
Which is scary, because then we'll get, you know, people who just have no affiliation, or at least not publicly known. We'll get another Heather Hare who's just innocent bystander who just gets killed because of these fuckheads who want to kill each other. Which is just unacceptable, because this is political discourse at its worst.
Yeah.
No, we're regressing back to the fucking late 60s, early 70s, where we're having, the police and National Guard coming in to fight these fucking radical groups.
So there's a lot of people who are right now who are genuinely scared, and I can't tell you this I can't tell you this strong enough that there is another rally in Portland on September 10th that I will be attending. Okay, it will not go well.
They never go well.
Yeah, it's going to go worse. Because now they're encouraged. Now that they believe that they've had a good decisive victory, they're going to go out even more. If you think that what happened in Berkeley today it's not going to stop. This is only encouraging those who are Patriot prayer groups, and it's going to get worse. So sorry to cut you out, man. Sorry to cut you out, Parker, but Jesus Christ, today is a fucking good show.
Well, I imagine, and you might want to go into detail about why it's a fucking
okay.
Shit show today.
So canceled their event on Saturday, and it was supposed to be in San Francisco, and they canceled it due to the fact that they believe that the media and the government was actually working against them by rallying up these people to actually counter protests, which they knew full well would lead to violence. It's done it time and time and time before. So they canceled it. Instead, they did a press conference. During that press conference, you had nothing but trans people and people of color just going forward and saying, yeah, we're not neo-Nazis. What the fuck? Nobody listened. Today, they went down to Berkeley, not as a rally, but simply just to talk to people. They were met with instant violence. Joey Gibson was beaten with sticks and 2x4s, had his hat stolen. I think that's the least of his worries. Beaten on multiple occasions and ended up being hospitalized. Tiny, who's that Samoan guy, he was beaten with the same thing. You have another individual who you can actually see in the newscast now. He was surrounded and beaten by at least a dozen Antifa members. You can see multiple people being beaten on the ground by members of Antifa who were just trying to pile on. They were bringing weapons with brass knuckles, 2x4s. They were bringing in baseball bats and a lot of fucking bear mace. Jesus Christ, it was a goddamn cloud of bear mace. So this shit it's beyond a shit show. California is lost. California is no longer under the control. No, California is. I'm not kidding, Parker. California.
I know, especially Berkeley, because we know that mayor has. We don't know if he's particularly in bed with BAM, who is in charge of Antifa in Berkeley, but he is proven that he is friends on Facebook with Yvette Veronica, who is the main organizer of BAM and Antifa in Berkeley, and he also likes BAM on Facebook. So he's friends with the leader of BAM, and he has liked the Facebook page of BAM. So it's sketchy to at least ponder as to why the police are ordered to stand down, and why the mayor has these kind of iffy attitudes about why he won't particularly condemn Antifa. He always says, that, it's the conservatives and everybody else that's at fault. When Antifa first attacked the Berkeley campus when Milo Yiannopoulos is there, he's like, oh, it was the college Republicans' fault for, inviting Milo in the first place. He doesn't want to address that. It's these fucking lunatics who are burning your fucking city property and assaulting people that's the problem.
Yeah, and this is what's going on. I now have several of my friends who are in the hospital. I have a couple of people who are arrested, and they started arresting people who are members of the Patriot Prayer, and it's not because any other reason than inciting a riot, because people rioted against them. And it wasn't even charged. They're not even charged. They were brought out in cuffs in hopes that they can actually get them out for their own safety. This isn't even because they're breaking a law. So I don't know what the fuck is going on, man. This is fucking crazy. This is an absolute shit. Berkeley is flat out under anarchical rule. There is no law. There's videos on here that I've posted on my Twitter. If you want to go to it, at Virtuous Skinhead, I'm actually tweeting them directly to Donald Trump. I'm seeing if the president, and I encourage all of you to do so. Go on your Twitter, because that's all he fucking does is pay attention to his fucking Twitter. And I'm not fucking kidding. Tweet, go on to Twitter. If you don't have one, create one. Find these videos and tweet them directly to at real Donald Trump. Get him to label Antifa as a formal fucking domestic terror group. They need to be labeled as such. These people have now gained control of United States cities, chanting that no racist, no racist, no KK, no USA at all. Like, you are literally crowded in the middle of the streets, chanting that you want the downfall of Western society and the United States. Yeah, you've now committed violence against multiple people who are literally just standing up for their First Amendment rights. No more. Fuck no more.
Well, it's not that. These dumb motherfuckers, they go to places and riot when there's not even a fucking presence of like actual white supremacists. A week ago, Boston, they made this whole shit show about white supremacist gathering, and it was a fucking I don't know what the guy was running for, if it was for city office or if it was for representative or senator, but it was a guy campaigning, and the guy was, you know, talking about like, you know, social issues like Black Lives Matter. He was talking about the environment and stuff like that. And these fucking people thought it was a white supremacist gathering. And the media actually thought it was a white supremacist gathering when it wasn't. There wasn't any fucking white supremacists in Boston. And meanwhile, people got their asses beat for no fucking reason. And Antifa was fighting, you know, with each other. They beat their own freaking members because they thought they looked like neo-Nazis. And, you know, there's another guy who beat a black dude because he said, you should be on our side because you're black.
I mean, I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh at your part where they're beating each other. It's like, what? They're really like,
and he's not kidding. If you actually follow some of the shit that's been going over there, it's I'm actually not on YouTube. I'm even joining the chat with the people who are actually watching. So I'm actually now watching the chat, guys. So if you guys want to include this, so feel free to.
This chat.
I'm going to read. Yeah, I want to read through some of you guys' comments because some of them are really, really good.
We got a lot.
Apologies if I haven't.
People.
There we go. Yeah, we don't have a lot of people. That's fine. Some of these people.
We have a fucking brony in the chat. We have T-Strix, who is official brony.
Although I don't know who Craig Martin Nagel is, but thank you for calling me a sexy beast, I guess. Templar Shield. I remember Templar Shield back. Thank you for joining us again. Keystrix, I don't. Oh, okay. All right. There's a couple people that I know from here. Cool, thank you guys.
Is there a way for me to actually see this?
Yeah, just go to the YouTube channel, and it should show on the live stream.
I don't know your channel.
Here, I can include the link in the chat.
Yeah, just go to Conversard on YouTube. It's not monetized. I don't do this for money. It's literally just to keep a record. But yeah, but for Craig, guns are coming out, plain and simple. Honestly, I'm telling you right now, the likelihood of that is pretty high. Even the people who I've been talking to who are not part of the alt-right, but are part of some of the things that I do, they're not only out for blood, they're out for Antifa blood, a lot of it. They want payback. And I don't know if I can hold them back. And I honestly don't know if I want to. I'll be fair.
I mean, Kyle, like, I was expecting you not to snap, but just to stop being the complete medium in breaking up Antifa and alt-right fights, you know, because, you know, these people they want to kick your ass. It doesn't matter if you try to help them out. Like, if you try to help a wounded Antifa get out of a fucking crowd of people wanting to beat the shit out of them, it doesn't matter. These people want to fucking beat the shit out of you just on the sole basis that.
But that's the thing, is I have to be better than them. I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ignorant and I'm not stupid. I know full fucking well what they want to do to me. I know if they had the chance, they'd put a baseball bat directly into my scalp. I understand that, Parker. But the thing is that you have to be better than them. And I still hold I still hold a neutral stance in the line of I will not overtly contribute to political violence. But as I've stated before, I am not a pacifist. I am not a pacifist under any circumstance. I will fight if needed, and I will defend myself. But the problem is, I will not go out looking for a fight. If they bring it to me, that's a different thing altogether. But today is a very, very different day, and I'm still very, very angry at the fact that a few of my friends are now hospitalized for simply speaking their peace of mind. It's unacceptable. This is not the America that Marines fight for. And I want, and I swear, over my cold fucking dead body, will they ever hold any kind of fucking territory here in fucking Washington State. Over my cold fucking dead body. Dude, and Craig, what is up with the gay stuff? Like, why you keep saying that you're not gay, but you keep wanting to, you keep wanting to switch it? Like, I get it, thank you, but why? Like, it doesn't need to be reiterated so many times. Thank you. And like he says, like, holy crap, you say it a lot. Very well. Craig, you need to see pastor immediately and repent and pray at least 19 times. Well, I'm not, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I'm an atheist, so I don't really support that or care. And Key Strix, I think it was Santima, but yeah, record anytime that you ever see people who are in clad black. Always, fucking always record these fuckers.
Absolutely.
Always do it.
Ben, if you want to record that douchebag who fucking bum rushed you, nobody would have fucking known that happened. Nobody would know that these fucking assholes are, you know, unpredictable. Well, not, I shouldn't say unpredictably, but unprovokingly trying to fucking fight with you, you know, just in public. And no one's fucking doing anything about it. People need to know that these people are just, they want to look for a fight, and, you know, they don't hold any particular viewpoint as to what their ultimate goal is. And, you know, these people are just deranged. People need to know that these people are deranged. They shouldn't be looked up to and defended like Sean King says, oh, I support Antifa because they're fighting fascists. No, you're a fucking deranged lunatic if you have that viewpoint. These people are bordering a domestic terrorist group, or they're pretty much a domestic terrorist group. They just have no organization, but they have the hive mentality of one, for sure.
Okay. So Mendel, just to give you a little context
by the way, for Craig, and by the way, Craig, to answer you guys, yeah, I already have a CCW. Thank you. There's a lot of, dude, this is weird. Like, why is it like the first time I ever come on when you guys are in charge of this? And there's a whole bunch of gay stuff all over the chat. What is going on here?
I don't know. Fucking Brony came on, and I don't know. We weren't talking about gay stuff. We were talking about the general BS about what's going on, like Confederate statues and Barcelona terrorist attacks, and I don't know. Yeah,
it's okay. Cool. I've read through all the comments, and by the way, thank you, Glenda, Templar Shield, for always coming back. You guys are awesome supporters. So, I do want to talk about one more thing. So I want to talk about, before this goes, I go any further, and it's because of, you guys were kind of touching on it before, and it was the Confederate statues. Okay. And when we're talking about the Confederate statues, I think we're completely missing the point. They want to destroy any similar. If it was about Confederate statues, this would have come up over the last 8 years when we had a black president. Okay. This would have come up during any time during the 2 year for the primary. No, it's right after Donald Trump comes in. Why? It's because you have to justify a form of dehumanization. By the way, I want to recant a few things that I've said in the past. I no longer denounce anybody, okay, including neo-Nazis, including the Antifa. I do not denounce any person You are Americans to me. You are flat out American. I will denounce your ideas, but I will not denounce the people. These are all Americans, and the reason for it is because I've gotten to a point where I've found out that this is simply a strategy that we've used in the military for a very long time, and it's that of dehumanizing your enemy. Okay? Currently, Antifa is being used as a paramilitary operation for the Democratic Party. Okay? I've seen that now from Nancy Pelosi literally encouraging counter-protesters to come Patriot Prayer Group. Okay? She knows that they will bring violence. Okay? They know full well that it will bring violence. Nancy Pelosi isn't a stupid woman.
Well, she is, but
No,
you know.
like she's not. Okay, she's dumb when it comes to policy, but I don't think she's an unintelligent person as a human and can't even follow what's going on. But I will not denounce anybody. I will denounce those ideas, but I will not allow the dehumanization that allows consistent and persistent political violence to continue to spread in the United States. That is a way that will lead to disaster, and it will lead to the civil war that so many people are begging for.
Well, yeah, I've said this before too. I consider Antifa to be a bunch of dumb fucks. I don't think they should be looked up to. I think they should be reviled, just like any type of neo-Nazi or white supremacist. But at the end of the day, these people have individual rights. They have the freedom of speech, so long as they don't inflict violence. But obviously, Antifa does that. But yeah, you shouldn't take away somebody's humanity just because they're part of some group. I think a lot of the people in Antifa are just clueless bastards who are just swayed into thinking that, you know, they're fighting actual fascism. I think a lot of these people are just, you know, dumb late teens to mid-30s adults that are just enamored by the ideas of anarchy and communism and fighting for, you know, civil rights. But yeah, there shouldn't be a complete condemnation of these people as being, you know, actual human beings and not just fucking hive mind robots. Even though I say they're a hive mind because they have an ideological hive mind with the same ideas, with no individuality into how they want their ideas to be carried out. But yeah, you shouldn't take away somebody's humanity based on their appearance or just on what group they're in. You shouldn't base someone as they identify themselves as a group. You should identify somebody, you know, based on their individuality. Just to clarify, just so I don't think every Antifa should be thrown off a helicopter.
I agree.
Only Bike Lock guy. Bike Lock guy, he can be thrown off a helicopter.
Eric Clanton.
Yes. Or just thrown in prison. Obviously thrown in prison.
Okay. Mendel, sorry for you haven't gotten to talk for a while.
No, that's fine. Oh, the lights went out. That's fine.
We've been going off on a just angry tangent here. But
And I'm sorry, that's kind of the way it is right now. I will tell you, this is the first time in a long time that I've been genuinely this angry. They are really. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully because I know that this is recorded, and so I don't want it to be stupid.
and
On the other hand,
city council.
And what?
You want to run for city council eventually, or that's what you've been saying.
I am incredibly angry at the idea of American citizens having their freedom of speech literally crushed when they have a permit. They have a permit to, and they are literally. It's one thing to say that we don't have to provide you a platform such as Facebook, such as YouTube, such as Twitter, so on and so forth. It is okay to not non-platform someone. I get that one, but when someone who is doing a public rally, speech, press conference, so on and so forth, in the middle of a public area that they have a permit for, and there is a threat of violence against them, to the extent that the police can no longer handle the amount of violence, that has to be a point where that is a failure on the government's on the government side to the extent in which they no longer hold a majority or a majority of violence. They don't hold a monopoly on violence. Therefore, they're an illegitimate government. They do not have a legitimate monopoly on violence. And that's the actual definition. I'm not going like, oh, well, this is my definition. That's the actual official definition of a government, which is an entity that has a monopoly on justifiable violence in a given geographical area. That's the actual definition, if you guys want to know what that is. And when you have a government such as the one that's held by Berkeley, the cops are literally being chased out. They are scared for themselves. They're scared for each other. They can't fight. They can't fight that many people. They can't even wrangle in this many people. You're looking at something along the lines of the LA riots following the Rodney King beating. And I'm really surprised there hasn't been more killed. I really am. I'm genuinely surprised that there hasn't been more death. And oh my God. And I actually retweeted it the other day that Sean King completely supports Antifa. And there's a whole bunch of leftists who are supporting Antifa. And the thing is that I know people who are genuinely decent people, and the media has spun it to the point where they don't even understand that, oh yeah, I consider myself anti-fascist. Like, you don't fucking understand this battle. You don't understand this conflict at all. At all. And since you don't understand this to such an extent that you're willing to lend your name to this kind of disgusting domestic terror group, because the media has spun it in such a manner that it almost makes them look positive. Oh, political violence is justified as long as it's against Trump, as long as it's against neo-Nazis, as long as it's shut the fuck up. I'm done with your goddamn nonsense. This is not justifiable. If you lend your name to the series of Antifa, fuck yourself. Absolute fuck yourself.
Yep.
You will not have an ally in me. You have no ally. I've not been an ally to those who are in Antifa, but I no longer will prevent what happens to you. I will try to stop the violence, just like I always have. I do not believe in political violence in the manner that it is going throughout the United States, but I swear to God, even though I'm an atheist, I swear to fucking God, I will not prevent this any longer. If you fuck up, you fucked yourself up. You brought this on yourself. I will no longer allow you to gain any fucking footing regarding the destruction of the fabric of the United States. I will allow you to simply be in it. And that's pretty much it. I will try to stop political violence as much as possible, but if you bring violence, good, game fucking on.
I don't know, I just had to laugh.
All right.
I imagine all the Antifas that if they tried to sucker punch you or anything like that, just imagine the fucking ass beating they would get from a former Marine who knows how to fucking fight. Just,
I'm so pissed off right now, dude.
imagine all the manlets just, oh, God. Imagine them. They can't fight regardless. They need fucking 2x4s and sticks in order to fight people. Just imagine. Which is why if they are actually going to be considered a domestic terrorist group by our government, I mean they're going to get quashed. There's no fucking doubt about that. They're any semblance of power they have is going to be gone. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Compared to the National Guard or the Army, Antifa is nothing. You know, when you consider local police forces, obviously a local police force, like you said, isn't equipped to deal with hundreds of fucking lunatics that are out for blood. But compared to the freaking National Guard or Army, you know, forget about it. These people are nothing. Antifa is most dangerous.
It's just a matter of hoping it doesn't get to that point.
You know, poisoning other people. But, you know, in regards to, like, actual physical power, no. Antifa's nothing.
All right. So do you think you have like enough of it out of your system, like enough of that rant out of your system?
Well, we always bitch about Antifa, but
Because I actually wanted to talk a little bit about Chris Cantle. You know who he is?
he's a fucking living cartoon. Like, imagine like
Mendel, just to give you some context.
Yeah, can you fill me in?
So Chris Cantle,
What's this guy?
a major white supremacist leader who helped lead the protests in Charlottesville, Virginia, and in wake of the horrific car attack in which one person were killed and lots were injured, Chris Cantle claimed that the driver
the guy
was
in
innocent.
that Vice program?
Sorry, what?
The guy from the Vice program?
Yep.
Yep. You seen it?
Yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So yeah, for any of you who have not seen the Vice program, he claimed on camera that the driver was innocent and that the victims brought this on themselves, and that he is expecting future fighting in the future, that he is eager for blood, essentially. So this is not just an all Antifa thing. The right, the alt-right, and the neo-Nazis and white supremacists, they are preparing to respond in equal force, if not more, because they're the ones who actually have guns. So we gotta look out on both sides here. There are insane lunatics on the left and right we gotta contend with. And the vast majority of people are in the middle compared to these groups. These are the extreme fringes on both sides. The rest of us are all in the middle. And we need to not be fooled by the rhetoric of either group and like be clear, no, you guys are both fucking stupid.
Absolutely. It's just like the problem is though that like the Chris Cantels of the left, some of them are just being taken seriously by people who are in semi positions of power, which is the issue here. Like if Chris Cantel was, given like a like positive feedback from somebody like Sean Cain, like Sean Cain has done to people like Linda Sarsour and Yuzuru Kigali, then that's where the problem stems. If that happens with a Chris Cantel, with I don't know, like a media person, then forget it. Then we're completely fucked.
Okay.
I mean, it's happening with the left now.
So Mendel, I wanted to hear your thoughts about Trump's response to the whole thing. Later on, like 4 years after, you heard that press conference where he was like saying there's a lot of
we condemn the stronger terms the hatred, bigotry, and violence on both sides. On both sides. Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like that's. I feel like the sort of just general reaction to that is being like a very poor way of dealing with it, to say the least, is pretty justified. I mean, like clearly these sides are not equivalent, and as far as I know, the vast majority of people who were against the Nazis were peaceful protesters. I also don't want to create necessarily an equivalence between like the alt-right or neo-Nazis and Antifa, to whatever extent they were present in Charlottesville. I mean, there's I mean, you can make a comparison. They both have a similar level of respect towards the norms of civil discourse, which is to say none at all. But I wouldn't they're not morally comparable. I think the sort of what I've heard some people say, even though I don't I don't necessarily have any kind of inclinations towards political violence is, I get why you want to punch a Nazi. I don't get why you would be a Nazi, So I think that's sort of my analysis of his response.
And we know too also that the car driver in the attack, on his Facebook profile, he had like several like alt-right memes and pictures. So ideologically speaking, we know which side the driver was on. We don't know how much he was affiliated with the other people who were there. But I mean, would you argue, of course, that on the Antifa side, nobody on Antifa killed anyone?
Based on what I know, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I have a lot more to say on left wing versus right wing violence, just as not necessarily in regards to Charlottesville, but in general. But like, go on. What were you saying?
Well, my position on this would be, I think it's irresponsible to, after the identity of the driver is known, to make a statement saying, "Oh, both sides have their good and bad." It's kind of like, well, the public right now, the public is more outraged at the white nationalists because the person who actually severely hurt people by running them over with his car was a white nationalist. So I think, given the fact that the emotions of the people are more on the side of the so-called anti-fascists, because the one who committed the worst act of violence was on the alt-right side, I think it's better to be more sensitive toward the victim, to focus more condemnation on that side. But that's not even the worst part of his speech, in my view. The worst part of his speech was when he was sort of like complaining about the Charlottesville City Council's decision to take down the statues, where he's like, well, if we take this down, what
you mean all that
next?
nonsense about like Washington and Jefferson?
Yeah, that was actually the worst part of the speech for me, because it seemed like he was kind of like giving an excuse to the white nationalists who are rallying there. To offer a bit of analogy, it reminds me a little bit of the response to the Charlie Hebdo attack in Paris, when several like Islam apologists were like saying, "But look, the cartoonists wrote a horrible cartoon that smears all Muslims."
Well, Obama did that himself. So,
oh yeah, that too. Obama said people shouldn't slander the prophet or something like that.
Well, he didn't say that, but he kind of said what Reza Aslan says, like, "Oh, when you're doing these cartoons, you're painting all Muslims with this broad brush. You should do that, blah blah blah." But yeah, Trump's reaction was stupid, of course. It just kind of reinforces the left's determination to consider him as a neo-Hitler, and everybody who supports him or at least has a similar viewpoint to him as being a Nazi, which isn't helping. But then again, we have a president who is not smart, doesn't know what he's really doing.
He's trying to use his Twitter account to do fireside chats.
Yeah. And he thinks that Twitter can make, political policies, which doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think every speech that Trump does, there's always some stupid thing that the left takes out of proportion. But I think just him saying alt left, I think is stupid. Because how do you define alt left? You consider the alt left just Antifa, or do you consider the alt left just every leftist who is steering away from the at least principle liberalism, is just going to do unknown territories of authoritarianism that shouldn't be considered, at least what I don't know what normal leftists would consider the left. They wouldn't consider what sort of new leftism is doing to at least tarnish the idea of what the left is. I don't know. Do you think that's kind of weird how he used the phrase alt left and how everybody's saying alt left now?
I'm not a huge fan of the word alt left. I'll be fair, because one, it's just a play on words from the alt right. What they need to be labeled is what they are. They're flat out Antifa domestic terrorists. Plain and simple. Like that's what they are. They need to be labeled as such. They need, as I said earlier, I sent tweets directly in hope, because let's be fair, Trump is not a really good president, but he does pay attention to Twitter a lot, and let's hope that that he's paying attention to the point where there was already a petition that has over 300,000 signatures. I encourage you. It's on We the People. And if you want, I can actually find it for you. I'll put a link over in the chat area to be able to sign that. But I believe it has already over 300,000 signatures to formally label Antifa as a domestic terror group. So that's my take on the alt-left. I think it's...
Okay. I actually wanted to ask Mendel a question about Trump's argument that if we do this with this statue, Thomas Jefferson will be next. So I'm wondering...
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if you like paid attention to anything I said about like Confederate statues, you'll probably be able to like deduce my answer. But like my answer is more or less that, like Robert E. Lee is known for defending a state that was, or rather rebellion that was based on slavery. Thomas Jefferson and Washington were known for completely different things. And like it's absolutely true that they were slave owners. And if there was a sort of a broad consensus that, oh, there's a statue of Jefferson, he was a slave owner, and that's like what you're known for, then like it'd be absolutely justified to take that down in my view. Like that's not at all, I guess, the reality of the perception of Jefferson and Washington. So not an issue really.
Like Thomas Jefferson actually has a very weird, inconsistent history, because in most states he advocated for the abolition of slavery, except when it came to his home state, Virginia. So it's kind of like he just wanted to take away everybody else's slaves.
I don't know. Like I said, the actual character of these historical figures in question is not as important as sort of the public perception that they have today. When we're talking about these memorials.
Well, I do think the public perception, it could shift. It's hard to know exactly at this point. Recently in Madison, there was a very widespread popular petition on change.org, which got, I think, over 1,000 signatures, to have the name of James Madison Memorial High School changed to get rid of the James part. So it's just Madison Memorial High School. And the student who wrote this petition argued that they should do this because James Madison was a slave owner.
Yeah, not entirely sure how to feel about that. I mean, like, I guess I'd be open to arguments about like what is the, I guess, actual purpose of doing that and what effect that would have on society.
I mean, the tough thing is James Madison actually wrote the Bill of Rights, which defines many of the essential constitutional rights that United States citizens enjoy, like the freedom of speech, right to a free and fair trial, right to having secure papers and documents.
I'm familiar with all that.
So
yeah,
I get why, like Trump. I mean, I get why. I personally would not like it if the name of the high school were changed, because first off, you'd have to change a number of other things too. Like you'd have to change the name of the city. The city was named after James Madison as well, And it's one thing to get rid of like statues, monuments of Robert E. Lee, because I get it. He was defending a faction which supported slavery. But using slavery to characterize James Madison's like his career, I think, is a bit short-sighted. He's one of the key founders of our country. He wrote the Bill of Rights, which is a highly essential thing we live by today.
Thomas Jefferson, not Robert E. Lee.
Well, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah, but you said Robert E. Lee was the founding father of the country.
No, I said James Madison was.
Oh, okay. Damn.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think probably the important variable here is, like, is this person viewed as a symbol of white supremacy, or like a symbol of, just slavery being a norm, or is it just like, and it is like, and that being a sort of a broad consensus society, whereas just like a few people being annoyed, and like certainly there's a gradient there, but I think in the case of Madison, it's definitely on the latter side.
Which side?
The side of like, there's like very much the opposite of a consensus that James Madison, is like representing something to be vilified, right?
Right. Like, I haven't heard anybody in the Dane County government or anything like that supporting this petition. So it's just like a fringe group of people. It's not exactly the popular consensus, at least not yet.
Well, even with the Confederate statue removal, I think a lot of it is fringe group because, yeah, what Kyle said, like, if they really wanted to get rid of this shit, they would have done it by now. Like, the people who are screaming to take down this shit, they weren't talking about it 4, 8, 10 years ago. Where
you're not wrong in saying that, like these sort of like new taking down these monuments is just like a reaction to Trump, for instance. That like I don't see why that's necessarily like important. I mean, like, here's the thing: these monuments are far from the thing. They're far from like the foundation of slavery, or not foundation of slavery, but like the foundation of racism in America. Like, that's like you're not going to say, oh, like, why is there racism in America? It's because of these statues. But when there's like a resurgent right and people like Trump as the president, people are going to see this, and that's salient to them. So like it's totally it's like not entirely rational, but it's quite understandable that a lot of attention is being given to these monuments. And I don't think it's like necessarily a bad thing.
So Kyle, have you heard about the recent event in Madison with the Camp Randall and the Confederate flag?
Yeah, trying to have everything removed and renamed and everything.
Right, like the context with Camp Randall being a camp.
Yeah, it's a Confederate. Yeah, it's a Confederate camp where a lot of Confederate soldiers, or not a Confederate camp, it's a camp where a whole bunch of Confederate soldiers were held as prisoners of war.
Yeah, and they like died of diseases and stuff.
Yeah. And now they're trying to rename it. And the thing is, if you want to rename things, I get it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't really, I get trying to keep your history and everything, but does it need to be named? Not really, personally, to me. But I think it's a way for them to disguise what their true intentions are.
Okay. So I'm getting this message from a Templar Shield. Ben, I want to answer your alt-right questions. So what questions exactly are you referring to, Templar Shield?
Oh, you're actually paying attention to this chat? This chat has gone off the rails so fucking much. We have a guy who's like having a hard-on for Kyle, and he's just going like, oh, take the anal beads out and hard cock, and it's like, what the fuck? And then we got a brony, and then we got We just got a lot of fucked up people in this chat.
Yeah, I think right now we've got a few trolls.
Which, yeah, I don't care if you troll. It's just weird to pay attention to this shit and try to.
Dude, this is
conversation.
This is the most fucked up one that I've ever seen. Who the hell is Yellow Shirt Kyle?
That's me.
Who's
referring to me because of the fact that when I talk, the name Kyle comes over.
Oh, it comes up as Kyle. Okay.
Because of technical.
That's bad. Yeah. I don't know why everything just kind of fell apart. I think it's because of Craig. This is all dumb as fuck. It's not as simple as white supremacists or slavery or anything as simple as the times. And I would agree with that one on Craig. This is all dumb as fuck, and it's not as simple as white supremacists or slavery or anything. I agree with that actually notion. It's not that simple. The problem is that we are having two opposing sides, which are one, it's anarchists and that get thrown in with communists, and those who are who are kind of bought in by the media bullshit. Then you also have people who are just regular conservatives, but then you do have also far-right neo-Nazis, and you have a lot of violence from that side. But the problem is, this has been going on where you're not assaulting neo-Nazis. If you actually find a neo-Nazi and he assaults you, I encourage you to punch him straight in the fucking mouth. Defend yourself to every extent. On the other hand, that's not what actually happens. Most of the time, they just label someone a Nazi and then they just start beating the shit out of this person because they feel justified because they called him that. And it's actually, like myself, I've been called a neo-Nazi how many fucking times now? You've literally seen it on my channel that I've been called a neo-Nazi and that I'm hanging up Nazi propaganda posters. I've been escorted out of public areas of my school for my own protection because so many people have called me a neo-Nazi and have threatened violence on me, my life, and my home and family. So that's not what happens, is that, oh, it's just simply as, it's not as simple as the alt-right neo-Nazis and the Antifa. You're right. I agree. But it comes down to those who are on the left, and those are different than Democrats. Those are different than liberals. Those who are leftists are stewing discontent here in the United States in hopes to destroy the United States so they can usher in their own communistic utopia or anarchist utopia. And the only reason they're teaming up is because they hope that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and ergo they can team up. They will be able to be the one who wins out as a victor to be able to usher in their own particular bullshit utopia. And it's not going to happen.
Okay.
Because they don't even know what the utopia is going to be like, so obviously it's not going to happen. If they're fighting each other, there's no way they're going to have a consensus as to what to do. Like I said, even though they have the hive mind mentality, each little bee, I guess you could say, doesn't have the same view as to what the BS utopia is going to be like. So there is no actual colony, I don't know. What? Yeah. I don't know. They're all stupid. That's just, we all know this, but.
Kyle, would you mind giving Bender a little bit of background about University of Washington?
Yeah, 1 second.
Kyle wants to burn it down. That's all.
I absolutely hate the University of Washington. And there's a lot of reasons why. So this all started back in November when I went to a Women of Color conference, and they pretty much said that I can't be there, even when I was in there in support. Because, like, yeah, if you want to sit here in the public area and speak your mind, more power to you. Cool. I'm not a white supremacist. I'm not a neo-Nazi. I don't really care what color you are. I care what you can bring to the table. I don't understand the alt-right when they say that they want a white majority country here in the United States. I could understand that in, like, Iceland or Germany or somewhere else that's a primarily white country. The United States was built to be, a big mixing pot, so I don't really care. On the other hand, when I'm told that I'm not allowed to film in a public area because of the color of my skin, because of the way I look, because I'm bald and I can't grow hair, yeah, I've got a fucking problem with that. Then it continued into the Milo Yiannopoulos thing, where I asked to go because I was curious of what was causing all the animosities, why everybody was so pissed off with him. So I went in, got to view it, and ended up seeing Antifa firsthand. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? This is absolutely bullshit. And then I started kind of railing against them. Mayday. I ended up going out to the Westlake Center. But ever since then, no matter what has happened on the campus of UW, I've been called a neo-Nazi. I've been labeled horrible, horrible things. I've been literally had to be removed from public areas because I was filming. So it's fucked up. There's a lot of things that come up with violence and threats, and then just natural assumptions. They see me as their enemy, and they don't even know what the fuck I stand for. I'm probably one of the most peaceful guys. And now I'm also in a dispute with a lot of the professors. I'm actually going through a Title IX dispute.
What?
Yeah, I am. I haven't even been able to tell you that because everything's been happening so fucking quickly. I'm in the middle of a Title IX dispute from me against the school. And it's because I was discussing, they did a blanket ban on words when we were discussing immigration reform in my class. And that discussion of immigration reform did a blanket ban on the words illegal, undocumented, and alien. Yeah, try having a fucking discussion on immigration reform without those.
Is this your law and society class where you're like making people cry?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the exact same class actually.
Unfucking believable.
Yeah. So then I made the formal complaint, and then it actually went somewhere because the person that I sent it to was a professor of mine that actually agreed with me. And they're like, "Damn, okay, cool." So it started going up forward, and I ended up talking to my professor again, where they're like, "Okay, what would you do to protect freedom of speech in this one?" and so on and so forth. Because the director of the political science department, he's actually back from like doing some kind of weird administrative thing where he was kind of out of touch with a lot of this stuff. And so he kind of came back and he's like, what the hell are people fucking teaching around here? This is bullshit. And it's because everyone's complaining about being a white straight male. And they've even attacked the director at this point for being a white straight male. And I said, why does it seem that if I were to do the same thing, if I were to say you're a black gay female, I'd be railroaded out of the school, but you can use any derogatory term you want to describe a white straight male. It's unacceptable. So I ended up talking with the professor in a private meeting where it actually went rather well. And then we got into like some of the political discussions of what's been happening to me on campus. And from then on, we were just kind of discussing about like some of the weird fucking things that people have approached me with and talked to me about. And towards the end of it, it was a discussion about the alt-right and an opinion of theirs that I completely disagree with, that the United States should, no matter what, be a majority white country. I don't really care about that. I care what you can bring to the table. Can you make America better? Good, come on in. So, and by the end of it, a secretary who works for the political science department, some random fucking secretary, overhears the very tail end of something, has no context, and flips the fuck out, comes up to me and just starts screaming in my fucking face. You're a fucking disgusting white straight male piece of shit. You've never blah, 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 and just starts railing at me. And I'm just sitting there calmly, okay. And then the professor who was there standing beside me witnessing all of this, the professor I was in the meeting with, she's just stunned and like, what the fuck do I do? And I just let her go. It's like, ma'am, may I? She's like, no, I'm not fucking done. Rah, rah, rah. Starts railing in some more. Finally, when she's done, it's like, ma'am, may I explain something? She goes, no, fuck you, and then turns around and leaves. I'm like, all right, very well. So I contacted my professor via, our online stuff, and she didn't respond to me for the entire fucking weekend. On Monday, I had to have a physical conversation with her because she just never responded to me. It went all the way up to the director of the political science department, and now it's actually going up to potentially the director of arts and science, which is like all classes, pretty much. Like the head of all departments. And I actually have a letter, and I'd gladly show it to you guys if you so choose. I have a letter that I've issued them of like demands that I want. One, I got a formal written apology from the person, but they're still looking at potentially firing her. So it's because all the legal eagles that they call them, the people who are like concerned about HR and the legal defense of the college and a whole bunch of other things like that, I've already reached out to FIRE, which is the Freedom and Individual Rights and Education law firm. Because I've been silenced in class. I've been shouted down in class. I've had arguments completely blanket banned. And it's not even because I agree with all these arguments. It's a matter of if people should be, given this side of the arguments. So then even if anything else, now these people are prepared to take on this side of the argument in the real world. This is a time to refine your arguments. Find what you believe. And for you to be completely hidden from a side of the argument leaves you less prepared for the real world. Potentially, if you ever become a congressman or a lawyer or a judge, you have no fucking basis and you have nothing that you can actually give to the conversation. Ergo, bad policy will be put in place because you can't argue your way. You can't argue your way out of a fucking shitty argument, such as, yeah, white people should rule the entire world and we should do a genocide against fucking minorities or some stupid alt-right bullshit. Like, how can you argue against that? You've been completely unprepared for this side of the argument, and now it's hit you by surprise. You've never prepared for it, and now they just won the argument, made you seem like a dumbass, and now bad policy gets implemented against you. And now it affects a huge swath of the population, which, and I'm not going to say that we're going to like introduce genocide or anything like that, but now we have bad policy for anything and everything. What if about trans people in the bathroom? Why is that a fucking issue? I've never been in a situation where, one, if you're a girl, if you were born a female, you're going to use a stall because that's the part you have. If you're a guy going into a girl's bathroom, you're going to use the stall because that's all there is. And if you're post-op and you're a female going into a male bathroom, I've never been in a situation at a urinal where I look down and I go, I don't know if that's real, dude. That never fucking happens. It never fucking happens. And so now I'm actually in a dispute with the Title IX office because when you bring up white straight male term as a point to literally attack me with, something that I cannot change about myself is a circumstance of pure out birth. I was born a white male who is straight, and I have blue eyes, and I can't grow hair. I'm bald. Like, I can't really stop any of these things. And why does that? And last time I checked, we literally had a revolution in this country to literally not judge people based upon their appearances, but rather the content of their character. How fucking dare an institution of learning that I pay, well, technically the VA pays, but I still am paid for to go to learn. How fucking dare you, a staff member of this learning institution, utilize something that is completely unavoidable but by circumstance of birth? How dare you attack a student like that, you fucking piece of shit. I don't care if you're a woman. I don't care if you're white. Fuck you. You're a racist.
Of course she was another white lady.
Oh, yeah. And then also on top of that, the letter of apology, the formal letter of apology, I actually turned down. I turned down the letter, and it's because basically the letter was written out to something that was general rudeness. Had nothing about what had actually happened in the letter.
Man, that is unreal, man.
And I've got it in my car. I can leave right now, and I will go out if you want me to. I will. In fact, I'm gonna pose the question to the live chat. If you want me to go get that letter and read you the formal apology from this person, I will go out to my car and get it. If you want, just type a yes or a no in the live chat, and I will go get it, or I will not.
They're all going to be yeses, so you might as well get it.
I have no doubt. Yep, there's the first hell yes.
Yeah, might as well get it.
It's hot truth. Yes, yes, yes. I'm getting lots of yeses. Princess Kyle, thank you, Craig. All right, so that's 4 out of the 7. So I will go. Actually, 1, 2. Yeah, it's 4 out of 7. That's a majority. I will go get the letter. Hold the fort while I go back. I'll be right back.
Okay. Since we've been on this for a while, and we usually don't like to go too much over 2 hours, I want to address a subject that was brought up at the very beginning of this live stream, the whole label of classical liberal.
Yeah. So, oh my God, I have a ton to say about that.
Okay.
I have a ton to say about like political labels in general. I could definitely like I would if we're going to cover one more thing tonight. I'd definitely like to after Kyle reads the thing. I would definitely like to touch on that and the entire phenomenon of classical liberalism and political correctness and I guess like recently I've just like had like a huge bone to pick with Dave Rubin. So I'm just like grouping all of this stuff into like all of everything I see that's wrong with I guess this area of the political spectrum as the Dave Rubin phenomenon. And I am going to shit all over that, but in a very reasoned way, I hope.
I will admit, Dave Rubin does have like a hard-on for classical liberalism as like a word. Like he uses it all the fucking time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'll wait till Kyle gets back, and then I'll go into everything wrong that I find with, I guess, just like him as a phenomenon and sort of the atmosphere that he has fostered in some area of this discourse.
I consider classical liberalism to be part of like the original Enlightenment era in terms of liberalism, like John Stuart Mill type of stuff.
All right.
You're technically not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there's more to it, obviously. Like, you're talking about utilitarianism and stuff like that. But, all right, later time.
All right, so,
Yeah.
Bell, University of Washington Political Science Department, to Kyle Broussard. So, I will read this. I had an entire statement, like a 3-page, like 3 pages worth of bullet points and speaking points that I actually brought into the meeting. And then my demand list, just so you're aware of the demands, is a formal letter of apology given to student in question by staff member who committed the aforementioned racially charged sexist comments at said student, Kyle Broussard, which emphasizes the fact that she committed a knowingly biased personal attack on this student's race, gender, and sexuality based on the partial conversation she overheard and assumed of the context of. Had the roles been reversed, the students would have been received extensive punishment that would have affected their academic lives for some time to come. That was my first demand. Second, complete a diversity training seminar which incorporates white straight males, as stated by the employee, as a group that is also should not be discriminated against. If this training does not exist, create one. The political science department should, before the start of autumn quarter, hold a department-wide meeting and training program on objectivity in the classroom. Professors should be informed to maintain their political affiliation outside of this campus. They should be reminded that it is their job to teach based on facts, not their reality, or whatever perception they may have of it. The professor in question who witnessed the racist/sexist attack did nothing to prevent, stop, or correct the actions of her staff after the incident took place. Therefore, it is also a demand that she provide a written formal apology for allowing this form of casual race and sex-based discriminatory behavior to continue unimpeded against the student who she was currently in a meeting with, on top of waiting 4 more days to address the issue with the student. It was left to the student to resolve. It was not until there was a formal meeting with the professor by the student on his request that she reached out to a superior to inform them of what had happened. I would also urge the director of the political science department to inform the president of the University of Washington, Anna Marie Kaus, I believe that's her name, of the decorum that has been allowed to take place on the college campus against those of opposing viewpoints. This should be addressed in a letter to staff and students alike, emphasizing the importance of the diversity of thought. This list may be altered if the conclusions are unsatisfactory or unmet. That is my demands, by the way.
Imagine if Black Lives Matter had demands like that well written. Like, just more people would take them seriously. I mean, Jesus.
I know, right? And I'm not even asking for the moon. Here's the letter of apology to Kyle Broussard. Dear Kyle, okay. And by the way, this woman's name is Jennifer Hopkins. Dear Kyle, I do want to apologize for my comments on Thursday, August 10th. I did think in my mind before I spoke that what I would say would not be harmful, and then it ended up coming out unkindly, and then knew to extract myself from the conversation as quickly as possible, feeling that it would only deteriorate. I have in the past also been attacked for my political beliefs, so I understand how persecuted and disrespectful it can feel. It was not my intention. I do respect you.
The most lukewarm
That doesn't
apology.
seem to like actually address the
Oh
complaint.
my God.
Hang on. It goes on. It goes, I also know that I had taken conversation between yourself and the instructor out of context. I don't really know how you feel about anything politically. Besides that fact, it is not my job to dispute politics, and it was not my place to speak with you on the subject. I'm a staff member. It is my job to serve the faculty and student body without passion or prejudice, and to do so while respecting all peoples from all backgrounds, creeds, colors, whether I agree with them or not. But I do respect them all, and I do care very deeply how all of the students' body is treated, and it bothers me greatly to hear of any students being persecuted for their background or their beliefs. I think it is not how to live in a civil society. I think we should cherish the diversity we have, and I did not want to be a contributor to actions that I hold in deeply in contempt. She's not that good of a writer, by the way. I wish to see all staff, students, faculty speak to one another in a civil manner, and if they can't, to refrain from abusive actions and language. It made me feel even sorrier when I was told,
Fucking university employee.
Go on.
Let's see if I can find it. Even sorrier. There he goes. There's the word. So,
Oh my god.
sorrier. Even
Wonderful grammar.
That's a
even
word.
sorrier. That's a word. Jesus Christ. Even sorrier. Sorry, that just throws me through a loop. To refrain from abuse actions, like it made me feel even sorrier when I was told that you had felt abused by my actions. I really didn't want to make you feel that way, and I felt anguished when I realized how much it had impacted you. I will make steps to ensure that neither you nor anyone else is made to feel that way again. Okay, God. I want our department to be a place of safety and compassion for all students, no matter what they believe and no matter where they come from. I thank you for your kindness and allowing me to express my remorse, and I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Jennifer Hopkins. Signed.
Dude, once this is like over and done, you have to make a video about like this entire saga. See, this is just fucking funny as hell. This letter alone is just like comedy gold right here.
Yeah. And by the way, I formally rejected this letter because it was amount to overall rudeness, not actually. Did you notice that she never pointed out what she did? She didn't.
No.
She kind of glazed over everything.
She put it in like the perspective that she was like observing somebody else doing it,
Yeah.
not herself.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like, I want to make sure nothing ever like this happens again. I'm like, how in the fuck do you think you're going to do that?
Kind of have to change your own self to do that.
All right.
Well, I mean, there was
All right.
like a lot of irony in the sense that she kept saying, I want to defend students who go through this, who are treated badly because of their background, because I don't think that's right. And like, well, what did you just do?
She's sorrier though. That's all that counts.
By the way, I'm looking at the chat now after I've read all that, and I just see a lot of sorriers. Like, what the hell is sorrier? I do not know if I will get a public apology, but I'm getting to it. Fucking end me. Education standards have really dropped. That is very true. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, check out Avenue of Intrigue. He's actually really good. I was actually just recently on his podcast. He's actually really, really good. I didn't know pretty much anything about him. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I really encourage you guys to check him out. He's really good. At least somewhat of an apology getting from his side is pretty rare. Avenue of Intrigue politicians. Yeah, so by the way, here's another question for you guys. Do you want me to list off, or do you want me to read you what my bullet point speech was? So that's my next question, because it's not very long, and it's basically talking points. So, what do you guys think? In the Ben, Parker, all that good stuff?
Yeah, go for it. After you're done with that, Mendel wants to do like one more topic.
That's fine. After this, I will have to go though.
And then
after this, I will have to go. I encourage you guys to continue the stream.
Yeah, we do have an announcement at the end of the stream though.
Yeah,
very important announcement.
Yeah. So here we go. So professors being as objective as possible. To this day, I still don't know the majority of my best professors and teachers' political affiliations. This is an institution of learning, not a place to gain allies or followers for your personal political ideology. Both sides of the story or an argument need to be presented in order to have a meaningful conversation. A persistent push of political ideology is not helpful to students. Many have kept their different opinions quiet and due to an overwhelming amount of hatred towards those who are openly disagree with, and especially towards disagreeing with that of your teacher in class. Many who voted conservative are even fearful of stating their political affiliation in fear of being ostracized, graded down professors who have differing political ideologies, or assaulted by those who know them in class and identify them later on in the real world or on campus. The atmosphere on the college campus is required to be fluid, or else nothing productive or constructive comes from an energy spent. If the students are unable to play with thoughts or ideas in a college setting, when will they ever? With ideologies being pushed right or left, the student is the only one to suffer. With the average age here so young of 19, it is literally damaging to their skills and functionings as an adult. Students need a space to challenge their ideas in a constructive manner, not to cater to their professors' political motivations. Now, this leads into another talking point, was intersectionality is political, not accepted fact. Although many have pushed it in classes, the ideology is new and many issues have come to light due to either the manner in which it is taught or how it is being used by those it is taught to. Many have used it as a club to enable individuals to verbally abuse, bully, or afford them the ability to cast traditionally racist sentiments with impunity. This subject should be taught as a theory in light that many respectable communities differ with this narrative, again presenting both sides of the argument or none at all. Intersectionality, though created with good intentions, actually incites division and fosters tribalism. In the current political state of the Union, such as an ideology is in fact harmful to the campus cohesion and preservation of free speech in a free and open society and campus of our university college. White people, I personally like this one the best, personally. But, white people and men have feelings too. Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be funny, but, you know.
I know, right? Awful.
Like,
what a fucking surprise.
I mean,
And this is coming from like a military grunt. Let's get this over with. How does it feel? And this is a quote unquote, how does it feel is often used in classes and on campus as a way to excuse traditionally abhorrent behavior. I've had this said to me by my professors, and for a place of learning to allow this to happen to a student is strictly unacceptable. Two negatives does not equal a positive. By allowing students of traditional minorities to bully those of the traditional majority does nothing to progress their cause. The classroom should be a place where everyone is taught to be the type of majority that is better than the previous examples. This extends to the diversity training and should be emphasized due to the current political climate that has been allowed to permeate the demographic of the student body. When the phrase person of color, or POC, is utilized, it is often employed as a manner to stifle the opinions of those who have no control over their biological reality or external appearance, with which they were born. Instead, a term is used for positive empowerment of the individual. It can be used and has been used to silence people with whom they disagree. Diversity is our strength. Yeah, I said it, shut up. Diversity can in fact be a strength if we allow all factors of diversity to positively affect our society. The variety of thought should be an intrinsic part of every class. Diversity needs to be all-inclusive, regardless of status, race, gender, etc. Otherwise, it is not truly diverse. It is select oppression, usually against those who are historically dominant. My way or the highway, and this is the last part, and then I have to start heading out. Shutting down, quote, harmful or offensive speech only works to hinder students from reality. In a place such as a political science department, where it is rather likely that a student could become a member of Congress or judicial authority, for this institute of learning to block a side or part of the argument due to a potential for someone to be offended is absurd. With every side of discussion, if for no other reason for them to learn to combat the side of the argument with reasonable logic and facts and not simply punching a Nazi. Many people who have simply disagreed who simply disagree with you politically are not just Nazis. They just don't agree. If they are hidden from these arguments, how can they combat them in the real world where they may have influence? Inability to argue against bad ideas inevitably leads to bad policy. The point of a university education is to educate the masses. This cannot be done by catering to their feelings. This is done by presenting students with the facts and teaching them the tools necessary to comprehend, analyze, and form a sound, educated judgment upon reality.
Fucking beautiful.
I would, during the part where you say diversity is our strength, I would have put in intellectual diversity is our strength.
That's why I said diversity of thought. It's essentially the same thing.
He's trying to use their own words, but use
appropriation.
Anyways, Kyle 1, University of Washington 0.
So yeah, that's from the University of Washington, or that's the statement I made to the director of the political science department. So some of that wasn't as well written as I had hoped, but you know, I did it in like 2 hours the night before. So because he wrote me the email about the meeting. He's like, yeah, I'd like to have a meeting tomorrow. I'm like, sure. Type some shit up. So I did that like in 2 hours the night beforehand. Practiced it once, and then I gave the speech to. It turned out to be the director and like 3 other witnesses.
Maybe you could like publish this online after you graduate in like
Maybe.
an article someplace.
I've already tried to get out to to a couple people, and yeah, that didn't work.
Might as well be just a graduating speech.
I know, right? So, anyways, guys, I encourage you guys to continue the stream. I have to start heading out. It's awesome to talk to you guys. Sorry to cut out so early, but I'm leaving it in Ben, Parker's, and Mendel's hands. I encourage you all to continue listening. They're fucking awesome people. I give them full confidence.
We'll totally fuck it up, but yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, besides that, I already fuck things up personally, so it's not like you can fuck it up any worse. And Mendel, you came in with the the support of Ben and Parker. So besides the fact that for some reason you sit way off to the fucking right of the screen.
A lot of people
I can't really see myself that well.
So, but seriously, guys, continue on. Thank you all for listening to me. Thank you guys for being patient with my in and out and then my random ranting about Antifa, my reading of a letter to the University of Washington. This week has been very busy. I'm actually you guys can congratulate me, I'm taking the LSAT for the law school admissions test on the 16th of September down in Salem. So wish me all luck. And I hope to talk to all of you again. You guys are fucking awesome. Thank you for the support. Thank you for all the love and the kind words and even the request for anal sex from Craig. And all that stuff. So, so thank you all. Seriously, thank you again, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya.
All right.
See ya.
See you then. Okay. We'll probably finish this off at 1, maybe. I don't know.
Or 12:45.
For those who are in Central Time Zone, it's fucking late in Wisconsin over here. It's almost 1 o'clock. But
It's 12:31 a.m.
we do. Mendel wants to. I mean, we were going to talk about this in the discussion, anyways, but we got side railed. But we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Mendel will talk about how classical liberalism has been kind of construed, or just I don't know, just general political labelings and why it sucks. And then we have an announcement.
Yeah, or political labels don't suck per se. It's that they're I wouldn't say misunderstood. That people treat them more like political clubs than they do actual descriptions of one's, prescriptions about society and politics. So, case in point, and I have 2 points. I have sort of 2 different reasons that I have a beef with Dave Rubin. And one is I think he's either incredibly stupid or incredibly dishonest. But in any case, his stupidity and dishonesty have to. He could be both, but in any case, the sum total of his stupidity and dishonesty has to be some large quantity. And here's why. He keeps saying that he's a classical liberal. He's a huge hard-on for that term. What does classical liberal actually mean? It refers to its closest equivalent in just the modern political discourse is libertarianism. It's individual freedom, limited government, just all of those basic libertarian precepts. And he uses this as a way to claim that he is some rare breed. He says that he's the last liberal. In fact, that's the thing on his fucking Twitter. And I think that he's deliberately doing this. He's deliberately relying on the confusion of what the term classical liberal is. The classical liberal is not a liberal in any sense that Americans understand that word. Liberal in America refers to like the left in America, like not necessarily the far left, but like the center left is what liberalism is in America. And so basically, well, so why does he call himself classical liberal? Why does he insist that he's the last liberal? He does it so that he can be basically be like a poster child for the far right, right? Oh, like some far right goon can say, oh, I respect this liberal here, Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin is not a fucking liberal. He is like, it's really hard to determine what his actual positions are because like honestly he's so stupid that he doesn't like have an actual clear picture of policy in America.
He's a disenchanted slave of Cenk Uygur. So I mean, of course he's gonna have the opinions he had in the past. I mean, who won't?
I don't care about his opinions. I'm pretty far on the left, and I have more respect for Rush Limbaugh than I do for Dave Rubin because Rush Limbaugh is honest about his positions. Dave Rubin is like a dishonest hack. And here's, or I don't know. I don't know if I'm like communicating this in perfectly clear terms. But he says, I'm a classical liberal. I'm a liberal, and he does this in order to, in a very deliberately confusing way, when he's in fact on the right. And that allows his show to have like a pretty. I mean, like I guess you wouldn't see this as a problem if you think that, if you're not on the left. But if you're on the left, you're like, yeah, this is a problem because you're I don't know. It has the effect of like one shifting the Overton window to the right, but also just like, oh, you sort of have like this this like influence that claims to be a liberal, but is clearly not on your side.
Mendel, your voice is sounding a little bit weird. I was wondering, do you have the YouTube window open?
Yeah, should I close that?
Can you hit the pause button on that?
Yeah.
I can't even hear the static, but people are saying your voice sounds robotic. So
maybe.
I hear it on my end.
Okay, well, I'll close that window anyways. So, yeah, did what I say make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, we understood what you're saying.
Okay. Well, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that Dave Rubin is in a tough position because he wants to dissent against the fringe parts of the left that he doesn't like.
That's fine. I do that all the time.
Partly because, as Parker said, he's been working for Cenk Uygur for a long time, and he's been frustrated with Cenk Uygur's tactics and arguments, and he feels like, all right, well, that's right. That's it. I've about had it. I've had it with these people who attack new atheists like Sam Harris for not speaking kindly enough about Islam. I've had enough with these kind of people. But at the same time, he wants to keep viewership. And forgive me if I found cynical for saying this, but I feel like there's a kind of sense that a lot of people have, and I think Rubin is included in this, is a lot of people think that that it's kind of that everybody's either far left or far right, and that there aren't very many reasonable people. So they try to aim towards getting what Dave Rubin's kind of trying to do is he's trying to appeal to the right-wing audiences who would agree with him about the fringe parts of the left being bad, while at the same time trying to avoid losing his traditional left-wing audience that he had while he was on the Young Turks.
He doesn't have a left-wing audience anymore.
Well, there are a lot of people, like in the YouTube comments on his videos, complaining about.
I mean, his audience is basically at this point the alt-right.
Well,
not necessarily all right, but like all right and its fringes, and the far right, and jaded assholes, basically. Well, not jaded assholes, but the right. Like he doesn't. He's if you look at it, every analysis of his political position on the right, his refusal to criticize Trump, even the things that are totally justifiable to criticize him for, and there's no shortage of that, puts him on the right. And he instead spends all his time on, political correctness and the left being out of control. Like that's his narrative. I mean, for all of his talk about, oh, we should judge people as individuals, we should make broad generalizations about groups, but holy shit, does he do that with the left?
Like that term regressive left.
Yeah, or he says things like, oh, progressivism is a mental disorder. Like, are you kidding me? Like, that's like what are you doing if not painting the entire left with like the brush of ridiculous college folks?
Yeah, I think that's why he's saying it, just because the people who like really say, "Oh, we're progressives," are just like really crazy people. But yeah, I mean, I think Dave Rubin's like trying to play catch up and trying to play catch up in terms of actually trying to understand what he wants to get his viewpoints across, because I think he's absorbing a lot of what his guests are saying, if you know what I mean. Because the thing that I like about Dave Rubin is he really lets his guests talk a lot, and like he doesn't.
Well, we'll get to that in like the second part of my criticism of it, I guess.
What's your criticism about his?
Okay, well, I mean, just like solidify the first point. Do you think that he's being dishonest in how he describes his own political affiliations in order to just cultivate an audience?
Wait, what?
Would you agree with me that he's being dishonest in how he uses political labels in order to cultivate an audience?
Somewhat. I mean, I think he garners a lot of people on the right, specifically just because of how much he talks about, the regressive left and just leftists in general. I don't think it's somewhat dishonest, because I think he honestly shares those viewpoints.
Or I mean, it's not like I don't share his viewpoints about some parts of the left. I definitely don't agree with him that the entire left has gone off the rails, but but whatever he points, there are definitely some instances in which things like political correctness or intersectionality are like not actually helpful to this discourse, and I totally agree with him on that. But I can agree with him all that at the same time that he's being dishonest and calling himself a liberal.
Would you prefer Bill Maher? Or how do I pronounce it, Parker?
You said it right.
Bill Maher doesn't call himself a classical liberal. He just calls himself a liberal, and that's what he is. Bill Maher's
right.
I'm saying a liberal. Dave Rubin,
do you prefer that?
Like a libertarian-ish, conservative-ish kind of person.
Like a rare example of a conservative who supports gay marriage.
Okay, but I don't necessarily. Okay, well, first off, he doesn't believe in like anti-discrimination laws for gay people. Okay, yeah, I mean, like at the very least, he's a libertarian and not a liberal. He's not. Okay, the point is, he claims to be a liberal. He's not. Okay, can we agree on that? He's not a liberal.
Okay.
Yeah, and by saying so, he's being dishonest, and that dishonesty is paying dividends in terms of like what kind of audience he can cultivate. Not that he's drawing liberals, but he's drawing in people who can point to him as like a token liberal example of someone who has this taste for the regressive left. There really is no shortage there, honestly. But yeah. Again, and I guess my second criticism of him would be that and it's here's the thing regarding his interview style and the kind of people that he associates with, which I think are just incredibly obvious. So he's had Mike Cernovich on his. First off, before I move on to that second, I want to read some of these things in the. So if you like, any of you listeners are watching, I guess you could give me your thoughts or call me a cuck or whatever. I'm not seeing that so anything, but yeah. Moving on to this, the first point, he's dishonest by calling himself a liberal when he's not. And here's the thing: if you believe, okay, for example, if I believe in universal health care and a strong safety net, and I believe in like social liberties, like gay marriage and abortion and etc. and things like that. But I have like a major problem with things like political correctness and intersectionality, and I think the modern incarnation of feminism is not always helpful. What does that make me? It doesn't make me a centrist. It doesn't make me a classic liberal. I'm just a liberal and who like has disagreements with other self-proclaimed liberals. I'm not in a political club. I have liberal is a description of my stances. So I really hate this trend of people saying, "Oh, the left and the right have just gone too far," and that makes me a centrist. No, what are your actual positions? Right? I'm interested in knowing that. Going to the second point about the people he brings on. He is, he has said, he has had on Mike Cernovich and Lauren Southern and Tommy Robinson and most recently Katie Hopkins. And these are all people who are,
a lot of them have
very least
views, and a lot of them are just like fucking assholes.
Like a lot of them are like probably bigots.
Yeah, like Mike Cernovich.
Mike Cernovich is on the alt right. And he'll say he's on the alt right.
Yeah.
Emil Yiannopoulos wouldn't necessarily say that he's alt right, but he writes a Breitbart and he's a goon. And well, not a goon, more of a troll, really.
He's a sympathizer for the alt right.
Yeah. Lauren Southern is a white nationalist. Katie Hopkins has, regarding Muslims, she says we need a final solution, invoking that rhetoric. He's had on Paul Joseph Watson, who works for InfoWars, is a 9/11 truther. None of these facts that I just presented you about some of the very bad things that these people have said and done, and just the very negative influence they have on our politics via their programming, that doesn't come up in his interviews. And so what happens is, when you bring these people on and you don't talk about these things, and you said these people are part of a new center, quote, new center, that's another catchphrase that he likes to use, you're misleading your audience. Here's some of the people he's put in the quote new center. Paul Joseph Watson. Paul Joseph Watson works for InfoWars and is a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. He is not a centrist by any stretch of the imagination.
And he doesn't understand clinical depression.
Like he treats the far right, not necessarily alt-right white nationalists, although there's a fair sprinkling of those among the people that he's brought on. But
you're basically saying that he treats them a little softer than he would like if he was going to have like a left-leaning guest.
I mean, certainly, if he had a left-leaning guest on his program,
because I agree with that.
He would tear into them on the basis of their sympathy for political correctness or whatever the hell he's complaining about. And just, I have thoughts like on the general, just focus on political correctness in like I guess the media scene. Political correctness is low-hanging fruit. Like everyone except like the most irrational goons like don't have a problem with some instances of political correctness when it goes too far, right? Once you like, we're talking about a sort of fringe ideology that really only exists on college campuses. But in any case, without going too much into the actual scale of the influence that this ideology has, I think that talking about political correctness is, I think, I watched a video from David Patman where he described it as intellectual fast food. And that's what it is. It's easy to digest, it appeals to our emotions. And so sure, talk about political correctness and how it's harmful, but then move on to like, actual subjects, right? But that's just like a side point about political correctness that I think like that might be a point of disagreement we have. But what do you think about Dave Rubin, his alt-right guest, and how it just like shifts the Overton window to the far right?
Well, I think that his interviewing style, he has been successful in like getting some people to hang themselves. Like he got Dennis Prager, for example, to expose his own stupidity just by letting him speak. So there are
there are some instances in which that could happen, but let's do a case study, right? Paul Joseph Watson. Paul Joseph Watson works for InfoWars and is a 9/11 truther. Now, what if you were a minimally competent journalist? And here's what Rubin indeed said to Paul Joseph Watson. Are you a conspiracy theorist? That was like actually the question that I asked. And Paul Joseph Watson said, no, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Well, then a minimally competent journalist would be able to say, oh, then why did you promote conspiracy theories regarding 9/11? A minimally competent journalist could do that. And when you don't do that, you're misleading your audience about who this person actually is. You're treating this person, you're painting a picture of your guest as a reasonable person when they're really not. Do you not see how that is like just a harmful influence on our political discourse?
Yeah, I think the problem with him specifically in terms of like, I think he builds up a lot of relationships with a lot of the people he brings on before he even like interviews them, which is a problem in terms of he's somewhat friends with a lot of these people, so he doesn't want to completely offend them or try to ruin. I don't think he's out for obviously ruining reputations, but I think if he tries to do types of, like bring up Paul Joseph Watson's BS, it might ruin a particular relationship. So
if all you bring up is facts about the person's views and the things that they say,
yeah, I know.
And your job is to be like is present guests and be a media platform for current events. You're fucking up your job if you don't bring that up on the basis of your personal friendships with your guests.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that he kind of needs to go away from that. He needs to be sort of more. He needs to go like into his interviews more as like a complete outsider, or at least has to go in with a more like try to make it so that like an audience member doesn't know this person actually gets a full perspective about what this person is and like what they've said. So yeah,
but here's the thing: I don't think that's gonna happen because he doesn't care. I mean, all he cares about is like I'm cultivating an audience. And if I bring on this right-wing person, or even like sometimes a left-wing person, but ostensibly, like in either case, is to criticize, some of the worst elements of the left. Yay! Like my audience like eats this up, and misconceptions about my guests be damned. That's sort of the game that he plays. And honestly, I find it like pretty unconscionable.
Yeah.
So it's not his personal views that are the issue. You just feel he's.
I don't care about. I honestly don't care about his personal views. Like, I describe his views as like, libertarian, perhaps like a hint of conservative. But here's the thing: he's to the left of, say, someone like, Rush Limbaugh, right? He's to the left of Rush Limbaugh, which is most people are. But you know what Rush Limbaugh doesn't do? He doesn't call himself a liberal. He doesn't deceive people about what his like actual positions are. And when he brings on people, you're not deceived about their positions either. I mean, I can't speak like how honest this guy's, but like that doesn't happen. Dave Rubin is like a completely different animal to your just typical right-wing pundit.
Yeah.
So you're saying like he's unprincipled?
Yes, my problem is with this lack of principle, and and I have a problem with the effect that he has on our political discourse. I mean, the effect he has on our political discourse probably isn't much worse than say like Sean Hannity's program. Well, I mean maybe it does because only like old fucks listen to Sean Hannity. But yeah, I mean maybe it is right. Maybe he is having like a worse influence on our political discourse than not, because like you have these young people and like maybe even some disaffected liberals who listen to this and be like, oh, I am not a liberal anymore because like intersectionality is out of control. I mean, if people are called like these social justice warriors are calling everyone Nazis nowadays, and therefore I don't think racism exists in America anymore. Or I think global warming might be a hoax. Like if that is sort of the kind of, I mean, I'm actually not sure how often that happens. People are being mighty stupid. But yeah, Rubin is responsible for that phenomenon, and he's like pretty shit for it.
Yeah, he is kind of a shitword on Twitter. If you ever go on his Twitter, he will. I don't know. You'll notice.
If you listen to his actual remarks, you'll notice he's not very smart either, right? When he was on David Takman's program, and when he was asked, oh, like, what are your actual liberal positions? And he says, oh, I believe in single payer healthcare. And the way he describes single payer healthcare is basically Obamacare.
Yeah.
Obamacare's not fucking single payer. Anyone who understands anything about like
I watch
that.
Dave Rubin to listen to guests and like what they say. Like I'm not interested in his opinions that much either, but yeah.
I mean, have you watched his program with Katie Hopkins?
Not yet.
What about with Paul Joseph Watson or Lauren Southern or Mike Cernovich?
I've seen both of his with Paul Joseph Watson.
Okay, did he ever once bring up the fact that Paul Joseph Watson is a 9/11 truther?
Well, no.
I mean, why wouldn't you bring that up especially if you're just asking him as a question, are you a conspiracy theorist? I mean, ask Tommy Robinson, are you a bigot? We can debate whether or not Tommy Robinson is a bigot. There's some reasons to think so, some maybe not, but in any case, like, why not bring up the stuff that he's actually said? That way your audience will be informed. I mean, if David Rubin wanted to bring on nothing but KKK numbers, if you want to have like David G. and Richard Spencer on his program, that would be fine, as long as he didn't just like let them spew their nonsense before they protest it. Here's the thing: if Richard Spencer came onto Dave Rubin's program, they would be like, "Hey, this is the left out of control." I mean, come on. David was the kind of person who would talk about Jordan Peterson even as the world descended into nuclear war. That's the feeling that I have about him, and that's sort of like part of the feeling that I have about the obsession with political correctness nowadays.
Yeah.
Like
so yes, like criticize political correctness.
So easy to just throw shade on the left, but I mean, like you do have to call out the right on their bullshit, and like
yeah, I mean,
a lot of people are easy at doing that just because the left is so easy to go after, but yeah.
If you call yourself a centrist, you cannot call yourself a centrist and at the same time have no problem with anything Trump has done.
Exactly. Like you can't call yourself a centrist and not talk about how stupid fucking Trump is. Like he can.
Yeah,
and it's just like there's this idiot in the comments saying that I should like do my research on 9/11.
We could go about that all fucking day, and like we have talked about before on previous streams, but like that's for another discussion another time.
I mean, like if you want, I could just go over all my positions.
Yeah.
Or here's like I don't know. Would you be interested in having me back on the program? I mean, I feel to wrap up. So would like just want to.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. Well, okay, so here's some of my positions that maybe a proper cuck. Well, I think Dave Rubin is a fucking eyesore on our, political discourse, which we already discussed. I think that there is like a pretty substantial and damaging degree of transphobia in our country. I think there is such a thing as institutional racism, and I have like thoughts about the right way to use the word privilege and systemic racism, and talking about Black Lives Matter, that are not that that I feel like the classical liberals have somewhat misrepresented. Not to say that privilege isn't the word privilege isn't sometimes used to derail conversation, because it absolutely is. Like very like left-wing views about the role of government. I have thoughts about sometimes like suppressing certain truths. That's a very it's a very nuanced subject, but we should get into that as well. But yeah, just want to throw everything into a proper cut through, perhaps maybe like more to discuss next time.
Yeah. We're gonna have to wrap this up because we usually end this at like 2 hours, but we've gone, close to 3 now.
Yeah,
we will before we're gonna end this in a couple minutes, but before, for the 4 or 5 people watching this, we do have a pretty exciting announcement coming up for maybe not the next stream. If it is going to be the next stream, then it'll be the next stream or the next stream after that. But we are going to have a pretty important guest on, and it's because of Ben, because Ben has been contacting this person through private messaging. But Ben, if you want to announce who we are going to have on the next stream.
Yeah, so we are hoping Yasmin Muhammad, a college professor in Canada who recently made an appearance on Dave Rubin's show, has said that she would be willing to come on at 12:30 p.m. on September 17th. She is an ex-Muslim who was formerly married to an Al-Qaeda member.
Yeah,
Should be an interesting thing.
it will be.
Just watch.
So I don't know. We probably won't go too much into what like she's already talked about. We'll probably try to talk about more recent stuff or stuff she hasn't said before, hopefully. But yeah, it'll be nice to have someone who's actually like, no offense, Mendel, but someone who's actually like more popular and like
That's fine.
who's got more of an audience.
I am definitely not showstopping material.
I mean, we've had one YouTuber on with like 500 subscribers, and obviously we have Kyle, who's popular, way more popular than us. But yeah, it'll be nice to have someone who's got like an audience. And we might actually be able to have, even though the people on the chat, even though the chat's gone off the rails a lot of times, you guys are great. Thanks for coming on, watching this weekly. Some of you, Templar Shield and Glenda, if you're still there, they've been on since the fucking beginning, which I don't know why, because, like Ben said, we're fucking hacks. There's so many better people you can sit and listen to for fucking 2 hours on end, but you listen to us, so thanks for doing that. We appreciate it, because normally we'd just be having these chats non-live, just shooting the shit, but it's cool having an audience. So, yep. Hopefully we will be having Yasmin on the 17th of September, so that'll be in 2-3 weeks' time. Okay, Ben's got the exact date and time. So yeah, 12:30 Central Standard Time. So figure out what your time zone's going to be for that. But yeah, that'll be exciting. So anyways, we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks for watching. Mendel, thanks for coming on. Enjoyed what you've had to say about various discussions, particularly with Dave Rubin, because I don't know, it's just interesting to talk about something that, like, I mean, I've had different thoughts about Dave Rubin, but it's nice to get a different perspective on that. Anyways, do any of you two have anything to say before we sign off, or before Ben
Not
signs.
really.
Good night.
All right, peace.
All right. See you, y'all. And it'll hopefully be good with Yasmin. Hopefully we don't completely offend her. Yep. Already hate symbol. Way to go, Ben. And Mendel just left. All right.
All right.
Peace, y'all.